is such a desperate sense of entitlement, isn't it? Surely this is all for me. Me? Me, I'm so fucking important. I'm so fucking important, right? Fuck you.
From the dusty mesa, her looming shadow grows, hidden in the branches of the poison creosote. She twines her spines up slowly towards the boiling sun, and when I touched her skin, my fingers ran with blood.
Look, I'd consider myself a realist, all right? But in philosophical terms, I'm what's called a pessimist.
Okay, what's that mean?
Means I'm bad at parties.
Let me tell you, you ain't great outside of parties either.
Pessimism has 3 definitions on dictionary.com. 1. The tendency to see, anticipate, or emphasize only bad or undesirable outcomes, results, conditions, problems, etc. 2. The doctrine that the existing world is the worst of all possible worlds, or that all things naturally tend to evil. 3. The belief that evil and pain in the world are not compensated for by goodness and happiness. In the first season of True Detective, Matthew McConaughey's character Russ Cole is the vessel used by the creators to express this pessimistic view on the world.
I think human consciousness was a tragic misstep in evolution. We became too self-aware. Nature created an aspect of nature separate from itself. We are creatures that should not exist by natural law.
His character is hardened by life, from the loss of his daughter to his time spent undercover and all of the drugs he has done. He has seen the worst life has to offer. This is in addition to seeing the horrific crimes portrayed in the show while working as a Louisiana State Police detective. Much of this pessimism is revealed through the conversations he and his partner Marty have in the car, and then during the interviews in 2012 with the other detectives. There is a philosophy created around this pessimistic outlook, not only through Cole, but also through the look and aesthetic of the show. There is no denying that the show looks bleak. Everything is dark and desaturated, colors blend to make it muddy, just like its characters. There may be beautiful, eye-pleasing shots, but the content of the shots are bleak. True Detective offers much more under this external surface, however, offering the theory that no, you're not that fucking important.
That sounds god fucking awful, Russ.
We are things that labor under the illusion of having a self, this accretion of sensory experience and feeling, programmed with total assurance that we are each somebody, when in fact everybody's nobody.
Rust Cole mocks those who think this. Throughout the show, he goes on and on about how life is not this precious thing, and that really, we should stop focusing on making new life. This is centered around the idea of antinatalism. Antinatalism is the belief that it is morally wrong or unjustifiable for people to have children, which most would disagree with, as having children seems to be something at the core of the human experience, and reproduction is part of human nature. Some can even argue that reproduction is the meaning of life, but not Russ Cole. This antinatalism belief is present throughout the show, not only through Rust, but also Marty in a much more subtle way.
I think the honorable thing for our species to do is deny our programming. Stop reproducing. Walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters opting out of a raw deal.
Rust straight up says his antinatal beliefs, but his actions also back this up as well. He admits to,
somewhere in there I emptied a 9 into a crankhead for injecting his infant daughter with crystal.
And then he even tells a woman who killed her kids,
if you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
On the other hand, Marty's relation to antinatalism is shown through his family and his own children. Much of his side story is centered around the problems he is dealing with when it comes to his family. Not only has he cheated on his wife, but he beat the shit out of 2 men who slept with his daughter. Like Rust, he is protective when it comes to kids. He kills Reggie Ledoux after finding the locked up kids, and Marty even admits to retiring after.
I saw something. Baby. Tweaker tried to dry the kid in a microwave. Saw that, what he'd done, I thought. Never again.
Both these men have already had kids. While Rust's daughter tragically passed and Marty has his own problems with his kids, they have still created life. It is likely that Rust has been led to this philosophical viewpoint through the death of his daughter, and Marty rejects it as his have already grown up. But nonetheless, the show presents the idea that bringing life into existence only leads to pain and suffering. Almost every kid in the show, or implied in the show, goes through some sort of extreme pain or death. There's no innocence among these children. Rust and Marty are each shown attempting to protect children, but the pain is already inflicted by the time they try to do any good. This offers the bleakest outlook on children possible, especially as having children is normally a very happy and joyous thing to most, often seen as something that can add meaning to one's life. Inherently, in this antinatalism, there is the idea that life isn't that important. If it is morally wrong to have children, then we are the living embodiment of something morally wrong, making us ask if we really should have ever existed in the first place, and now that we are living, how can we stop this cycle of pain? Well, True Detective says we can stop this by not having children and inflicting the horrors of the world on them. This is taken even further when Rust says,
Someone once told me time is a flat circle. Everything we've ever done or will do, we're gonna do over and over and over again. And that little boy and that little girl, they're gonna be in that room again. And again. And again. Forever.
This is one of the most pessimistic outlooks possible. We are doomed to repeat pain over and over again, so bringing a child into this world is only adding them to the cycle. The only way to protect a child is for it to have never existed in the first place. This is only the surface of the pessimistic philosophy offered by the show. Buried among its wealth of references and themes is even more exploration of human existence. But the unimportance of human life and antinatalism is one of the most prevalent, especially since at its simplest, the first season of True Detective shows the brutality of humanity and life. The Southern Gothic themes of the show begin with its setting of rural Louisiana, which is a very common setting of other Southern Gothic media and literature, including films and shows such as Angel Heart, Interview with the Vampire, Eve's Bayou, Beasts of the Southern Wild, True Blood, and American Horror Story Coven. Typically, anything in the Southern Gothic genre takes place in the American South and Caribbean. New Orleans and Louisiana seem to be a popular choice of setting, likely due to the connections the state and city has to the Creole people and culture. While True Detective does not have as much of a focus on voodoo, racial themes, or the history of this location, it still touches on these things while presenting many of the same thematic and characteristics of this genre. One of the most important is having deeply flawed characters and exploring the dark side of their psyche, which is the main focus of this show, if anything. In many items of the Southern Gothic genre, it is hard to find characters that are fully good and innocent. Many of the characters in this genre are troubled and do not always do the right thing. True Detective is not an exception. The two main characters in Rust and Marty are police officers and detectives, who are supposed to maintain the peace and be a force for good, even if they do not necessarily do that in real life.
Kinda strange. Like you might be dangerous.
Of course I'm dangerous. I'm police. I can do terrible things to people. With impunity.
The series show these men committing many crimes, and committing acts that are morally wrong, even if they are trying to do something morally right in the end, making us question if the means justify the end throughout. Both Rust and Marty are extremely flawed individuals, and we see them make horrible decisions and mistakes throughout, but we still root for them. The reason why we root for them, and so many other anti-heroes and protagonists, especially within the Southern Gothic genre, is said well by Rust.
Do you wonder ever you're a bad man?
No, I don't wonder, Marty. The world needs bad men. We keep the other bad men from the door.
Along with this, some other Southern Gothic themes True Detective featured are the many dismal landscapes and decaying architecture throughout. These are a staple in the Southern Gothic genre, likely due to sharing a similar setting. One can look no further than the intro of the show, which features these dull, decaying landscapes morphing into the various characters of the show, reflecting that they are also decaying, tying back to the analysis of their dark psyche. Even smaller themes and tropes such as the grotesque character are present in the show. Errol Childress and his scarred face serve as the line to this theme, and the fact that he ends up being the one responsible for the case the detectives are trying to solve again ties this show deeper into the genre. Showing how impoverished this part of the country is also something present in many Southern Gothic works, especially those dealing with the effects of slavery, racism, and colonialism. True Detective shows the worst parts of poverty throughout.
What do you know about these people?
Just observation and deduction. See a propensity for obesity, poverty, a yen for fairy tales. Folks putting what few bucks they do have into little wicker baskets being passed around. I think it's safe to say that nobody here is going to be splitting the atom, Marty.
It is the combination of the philosophical pessimism and Gothic themes that make True Detective such a great and compelling show. Many of the other Southern Gothic works also present a pessimistic take on reality. Due to the many dark themes they address and the social critique they attempt, they often reflect the darkness of our own reality. It should not be a surprise that this darkness leads to pessimism. Not only that, but the characters in these works, including True Detective, are dark and usually bad people. They are not the ideals of society, and the works are usually designed to explore what makes them bad and the parts of their psyche that lead them to do what they do. Again, these people have gone through and seen a lot of evil things, often making it tough for them to maintain an optimistic view of the world. Lastly, these works often end in bleak ways, likely reflecting the darkness they present. From Angel Heart displaying Harry's descent into hell, to Interview with the Vampire having Louis still unfulfilled and Lestat alive and well, these films do not often give the viewer a happy ending. However, this is not exactly the case with True Detective. While some have criticized it for leaving many loose ends and unresolved themes, this is simply an homage to the weird fiction it is inspired by, and reflects the many loose ends we deal with in our own reality. Instead, it ends in a more positive, almost optimistic way, not entirely embracing the pessimistic themes that led to it. Both detectives are alive, the bad man is dead, things have changed, and the light's winning.
It's just one story. The oldest.
What's that?
Light versus dark.
Well, I know we ain't in Alaska, but it appears to me that the dark has a lot more territory.
Yeah. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. Hey,
Yeah, what?
she point me in the direction of that car, man. It's been enough of my fucking life in the hospital.
Jesus. No. You know what? I'd protest, but it occurs to me that you're unkillable. You want to go back, get clothes or anything?
Hey, anything I left back there I don't need. You know, you're looking at her on the sky thing.
How's that?
Well, once there was only dark. Let me ask, any lights went in?